The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly before the Star Seeker, its sleek hull gleaming under the light of distant stars. Captain Stone stood on the bridge of his vessel, his 4 eyes scanning the numerous holographic displays that surrounded him. The Galactic Council had tasked his exploration fleet with mapping the outer edges of known space, a routine mission that was about to become anything but ordinary. "Captain, we're picking up an unusual signal," reported First Officer Reed, her antennae twitching with curiosity. "It's unlike anything in our database." Stone moved to her station, his tall, slender frame casting a shadow over the pulsing display. The signal was strong, yet it didn't match any known patterns used by spacefaring races in the Council. Analysis. It appears to be some form of communication burst, but the encryption is primitive. No, wait. Reed's fingers danced across the holographic interface. It's not primitive at all. It's just different. Very different. Stone made a decision. Take us closer. Full sensor sweep. Alert the rest of the fleet to maintain distance but stay ready. As the Star Seeker changed course, the ship's AI calculated the most efficient approach vector. The crew, composed of various species from across the Galactic Council, worked with the practiced precision that came from years of exploration missions. Nobody was prepared for what they found. "By the first stars," Stone whispered as the massive shape appeared on their main viewport. A ship hung in space before them. But calling it merely a ship felt like calling a supernova a warm day. It was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the Star Seeker, and it broke every rule of ship design the Council held sacred. Instead of the elegant curves and smooth lines that marked Council vessels, this ship was angular, aggressive, and bristling with what could only be weapons. "Sir," the sensor officer called out, his scales changing color in agitation. "I'm reading. Hull plating. Actual physical armor." Stone blinked all 4 eyes in succession. Impossible. No advanced civilization would use physical armor. The energy requirements to move such mass. "It's moving, sir," Reed interrupted, "and it's accelerating faster than our best ships, despite the armor." The mysterious vessel turned toward them, revealing a hull marking in bold letters, HMS Thunder. More markings became visible, showing a flag of blue, white, and red stripes with stars. "We're being hailed," Communications Officer Wells announced. "The signal is clear, too clear, no subspace distortion at all." On screen, Stone ordered, straightening his uniform. The image that appeared shocked the bridge crew into silence. The beam on the screen looked deceptively simple. Bipedal, 2 eyes, no obvious evolutionary advantages. Yet something about its bearing commanded attention. "This is Captain James Walker of the Human Federation ship Thunder. You've entered human space. Please identify yourselves." Stone recovered quickly, years of diplomatic training kicking in. "I am Captain Stone of the Galactic Council exploration vessel Star Seeker. We are on a peaceful mission of exploration. We were unaware this region was claimed." The human's expression remained neutral, but there was a hint of something in those eyes. Amusement, perhaps. "You're about half a light year from our outer patrol route. We've been watching you for the past hour." The bridge crew exchanged alarmed looks. Their sensors hadn't detected anything until moments ago. "We would welcome the opportunity for diplomatic contact," Stone offered, his mind racing with questions. How had they hidden such a massive ship? How were they achieving these readings? "Agreed," Walker replied. "We'll transmit coordinates for a proper meeting." And Captain Stone, "Feel free to bring your other 3 ships out of hiding. We don't stand on ceremony out here." The transmission ended, leaving a stunned silence on the bridge. Stone turned to his sensor officer. "The other ships, they were cloaked. How did they—" "Sir," Reed interrupted again, her voice shaking slightly. "You need to see these sensor readings. Their ship, it doesn't have shield generators at all. But these energy readings from their hull, I've never seen anything like it." Stone looked back at the massive form of the Thunder, its dark hull seeming to absorb the starlight around it. The Galactic Council had always prided itself on having the most advanced technology in known space. But now, watching this human vessel move with impossible grace despite its size, Stone had a feeling that everything they thought they knew was about to change. He'd had no idea just how right he was. Commander Gray stood before the Galactic Council's Military Advisory Board, his report crystal floating before him. Even after 3 days of studying the human battleship, he still struggled to find the right words to describe what he had seen. The council chamber was silent, its members, representing 20 different species, waiting for his analysis. "Distinguished council members," he began, his professional tone hiding his excitement, "what we have discovered challenges everything we know about shipbuilding and warfare." The crystal projected a hologram of the HMS Thunder, rotating slowly in the air. Several council members leaned forward, their eyes fixed on the massive vessel. "As you can see, the humans don't use standard shield technology. Instead, they've developed something they call layered defense." Gray manipulated the hologram, peeling back the layers of the ship's hull. The outer layer is reactive armor that can change its molecular structure to resist different types of attacks. Under that, they have traditional metal armor, but it's unlike anything we've ever seen. "Primitive," interrupted Council Member Wells, his fins rippling with dismissal. "Physical armor is inefficient." Gray shook his head. "With respect, Council Member, that's what I thought too. But watch this." He played a recording from their joint exercise. The Thunder took a direct hit from a Council heavy cruiser's main weapon. Instead of attempting to deflect or absorb the energy like a shield would, the armor transformed. The energy was converted into heat, then electricity, then redirected to the ship's weapon systems. Gray explained. "They don't just defend against attacks. They use them to power their counterattack." Murmurs filled the chamber. Council Member Reed raised a tentacle. "What about their backup systems?" Gray almost laughed. "That's the thing. They don't have backup systems. They have backup systems for their backup systems. Everything on that ship can be controlled in at least 3 different ways. If the main bridge is destroyed, they have 2 auxiliary bridges. If those fail, any weapon station can take control. If their main computer goes down, they have mechanical controls." The hologram shifted to show the interior layout. "They call it redundancy. At first, we thought it was wasteful. Then we realized this ship could lose 60% of its systems and still fight effectively." "Surely such complexity makes the ship difficult to maintain," another council member suggested. "Actually, no. Every system is designed to be repaired or replaced quickly, even in combat. They have repair crews trained to work in zero gravity, no atmosphere, and under fire. They showed us footage of their training exercises." Gray paused, remembering the disturbing sight of humans working calmly while their section was exposed to space. "They're remarkably adapted to hostile conditions." The Council's head of military affairs, an ancient being known simply as the First Admiral, spoke for the first time. "You seem troubled, Commander. What aren't you telling us?" Gray took a deep breath. "It's their approach to combat, sir. We design our ships to disable enemy vessels with precision strikes. The Thunder, it's designed to destroy anything in its path. Their main weapons don't target vital systems. They simply overwhelm and obliterate their opponents." He brought up the weapons analysis. "These are their point defense systems, not for taking out missiles or fighters. They're for destroying debris from the ships they've already destroyed. They expect their battles to create so much destruction that they need specialized systems just to clear their firing lines." Silence fell over the chamber. The First Admiral's eyes narrowed. "Your recommendation, Commander?" "We need to rethink everything, sir. Our current military doctrine assumes that advanced civilizations will naturally trend toward precision and efficiency. The humans," he gestured at the hologram, where the Thunder's massive form slowly rotated. "They went the opposite way. They built ships that can take incredible punishment and return it tenfold. And the most disturbing part, this isn't even their largest class of battleship." The chamber erupted in shocked conversation. Gray stood quietly, watching the council members react to his report. He hadn't even told them about the ship's AI systems, limited, collaborative computers that served the crew rather than controlling the ship, or about the manual override switches that appeared everywhere, allowing humans to bypass automation entirely if needed. The humans had taken every rule of advanced shipbuilding and turned it on its head, and somehow, impossibly, it worked better than anything the Council had ever created. The first admiral raised a hand for silence. "It seems," he said slowly, "that we have much to learn from our new friends." Gray couldn't have agreed more. The diplomatic delegation from the Galactic Council shifted uncomfortably as the HMS Thunder's lift carried them deeper into the massive battleship. Ambassador White tried to hide his discomfort, but his antenna kept twitching every time the artificial gravity fluctuated slightly between deck transitions. "Is something wrong with your gravity systems?" he finally asked their guide, Lieutenant Rogers, who walked alongside them with perfect ease. Rogers smiled. "Not at all. We just don't waste energy keeping it perfectly stable between decks. You get used to it." The other council members exchanged worried looks. Getting used to gravity changes was not something their species had ever considered. Their own ships maintained exact gravitational control at all times. Their next stop was even more bewildering. The delegation entered a large room where human crew members were hanging upside down. "This is one of our recreation areas," Rogers explained casually. "The variable gravity gem helps our crew stay adapted to different conditions. Right now, they're playing something we call zero volleyball." The aliens watched in amazement as humans bounced off walls, spun in midair, and seemed to genuinely enjoy the chaos. A ball flew past at high speed, causing several delegation members to duck in alarm. "Your crew does this for fun?" asked Science Officer Reed, his scales shifting to a pale green of confusion. "Of course, you should see them playing during combat drills," Rogers laughed. "Nothing like a quick game to stay sharp between battle stations." The tour continued to the ship's mess hall, where more cultural surprises awaited them. Humans sat in mixed groups, officers with enlisted personnel, all eating together and engaged in loud conversation. "Where are the rank-separated dining facilities?" White inquired, growing more confused by the minute. "We don't have those," Rogers replied. "Our combat effectiveness improved when we encouraged more informal interaction between ranks during off-duty hours. Helps build trust." A loud cheer erupted from one corner where crew members were watching something on a screen. "Ah, looks like the arm wrestling tournament is getting intense," Rogers commented. "Arm wrestling?" asked another delegate. "Friendly competition. Testing strength against each other. Builds camaraderie." The aliens tried to process this. Their own military forces maintained strict discipline and separation of ranks at all times. The idea of officers and crew physically competing with each other for entertainment was completely foreign. Their next stop was the ship's garden, a vast space filled with plants from Earth. Here, finally, the delegation felt some relief. Growing plants was something they understood, but then Rogers dropped another surprise. "Most of these are actual Earth species, not replicated. We find that having real plants helps maintain crew morale during long deployments. Plus, they're part of our backup life support system." White's antenna shot straight up. "You use real plants for life support, not synthetic oxygen generators?" "Both," Rogers said. "Redundancy, remember? If our main systems fail, the gardens can keep the crew breathing. If the gardens die, we have mechanics. If those fail, we have emergency supplies. We like having options." The tour continued to the bridge, where Captain Walker was waiting for them. The delegation was surprised again. The bridge was nothing like their precisely organized command centers. It was a hub of activity, with crew members calling out information, moving between stations, and even making what appeared to be jokes while monitoring critical systems. "Welcome to the brain of our operation," Walker greeted them. "I hope the tour has been informative." White stepped forward, trying to maintain his diplomatic composure. "Captain, I must admit we are struggling to understand many aspects of your ship." "How so?" "Your crew seems to thrive in conditions we would consider chaotic. They intentionally expose themselves to gravitational variations, engage in physical competitions, and appear to mix work with recreation. It defies all standard military protocols." Walker smiled. "Ambassador, Humans evolved on a planet with changing seasons, varying gravity due to our moon, and constant environmental challenges. We learned to adapt, to be flexible, to find joy in challenge. We built this ship and trained this crew based on those same principles. He gestured to the busy bridge. What you see as chaos, we see as adaptability. What you consider disorder, we call being prepared for anything. Every game, every informal meal, every gravity variation makes our crew better at handling the unexpected. The aliens watched as a crew member called out a minor system fluctuation, and 3 others immediately moved to different stations, smoothly adjusting their duties without any formal orders being given. I believe, White said slowly, we have much to learn from each other. Walker nodded. That's why we're here, Ambassador. That's why we're here. The Council's engineering team stood in the Thunder's main weapon control room, their instruments spread out before them. Chief Engineer Miller, the team leader, kept checking his readings again and again, sure he must be making a mistake. This makes no sense, he muttered, his crystalline body glowing with confusion. They're using both energy weapons and physical projectiles. Together, at the same time. His assistant, Engineer Green, moved her hover platform closer to examine a massive turret control system. Look at this targeting computer. It's not fully automated. They have humans making final firing decisions. The human weapons officer, Lieutenant Roberts, watched their confusion with amusement. Would you like to see the system in action? He offered. The engineering team gathered around a large display as Roberts began the demonstration. On the screen, hundreds of small dots appeared, representing incoming threats. This is a recording from our last training exercise, Roberts explained. Watch how our point defense system handles multiple threats. The aliens watched in amazement as the Thunder's defenses activated. Energy beams cut through space, superheated metal projectiles launched in precise patterns, and electromagnetic pulses created zones of destruction. It wasn't elegant or precise like Council weapons. It was overwhelming force applied with surprising intelligence. But why both types of weapons? Miller asked. Energy weapons are clearly superior. Roberts shook his head. Each type has its advantages. Energy weapons are great for certain threats, but physical projectiles can't be deflected by energy shields, so we use both. Plus, he grinned, you can't hack a bullet. The engineering team exchanged worried looks. Council ships relied heavily on energy weapons and computer-controlled defense systems. The idea of using primitive projectile weapons alongside advanced energy beams seemed wrong somehow. Their tour continued to the ship's AI core, which turned out to be nothing like they expected. Instead of a central computer controlling everything, the Thunder had multiple smaller systems working together. Where is the main eye? Green asked, searching for the familiar sight of a quantum computing core. We don't have one, Roberts explained. Our computers are decision support tools, not decision makers. They provide information and suggestions, but humans make the important choices. Miller's crystalline form pulsed with disbelief. But that's so inefficient. An advanced AI could make decisions much faster than a human. Maybe, Roberts agreed, but AIs think logically. Sometimes you need human intuition. Sometimes you need someone who can make the crazy choice that shouldn't work but does. The team moved on to damage control systems, where they found more surprises. The Thunder's hull was divided into sections that could be sealed off instantly. Each section had its own power, life support, and weapons control. You can still fight even with massive hull breaches? Green asked, amazed. That's the idea, Roberts said. Lose a section, seal it off, keep fighting. We can take a lot of damage and still complete our mission. He pulled up a simulation showing the Thunder taking heavy damage. The aliens watched in shock as sections of the ship went dark, but the remaining sections compensated, rerouting power, adjusting weapon coverage, and maintaining combat effectiveness. This is why we have manual overrides everywhere, Roberts continued. If automated systems fail, we can control everything by hand. If electronic systems go down, we have mechanical backups. If those fail, he shrugged, we improvise. Miller's glow had dimmed to a troubled purple. Your entire design philosophy, It goes against everything we believe about advanced technology. We strive for perfection, for systems that never fail. We assume everything will fail eventually. Roberts finished. So we prepare for it. Perfect systems are great until they break. Then you need backups, and backups for your backups. The engineering team spent the rest of the day examining the Thunder's systems, finding more surprises at every turn. The ship's reactor could run on multiple fuel types. The navigation system could work without computer assistance if needed. Even the ship's internal communication system had a backup involving actual sound-powered phones. As they prepared to leave, Miller turned to Roberts. One last question. Why do you call it Thunder? Roberts smiled. Because by the time you hear it, it's too late to do anything about it. The engineering team left the Thunder that day with detailed notes, complex readings, and a growing understanding that they had completely misjudged human technology. It wasn't primitive at all. It was just focused on different priorities than their own. Survival, adaptability, and the ability to keep fighting no matter what. The fleet gathered at the edge of a remote star system, 3 of the Council's most advanced warships casing the solitary HMS Thunder. The Council ships gleamed in the starlight, their smooth hulls and elegant lines a stark contrast to the Thunder's angular, armored bulk. Admiral Jones of the Council fleet watched from his flagship, the Stellar Grace. All ships report ready, his communications officer announced. The humans say they are prepared to begin the exercise. Very well, Jones said. Let's see what they can do. Begin with standard combat scenarios. The exercise started simply enough. Single ship maneuvers, basic targeting drills, standard fleet formations. The Council ships moved with precise grace, their formations perfect, their responses textbook examples of advanced space combat doctrine. The Thunder, however, moved differently. Where the Council ships glided, it charged. Where they made precise, calculated movements, it performed maneuvers that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. How are they pulling those turns? Jones demanded, watching the Thunder execute what should have been an impossible rotation. Their mass alone should prevent. Sir, his science officer interrupted. They're using their weapons' recoil to assist their turns. They're firing their main guns in specific patterns to help them maneuver. Jones blinked all 3 of his eyes, using weapon recoil for maneuvering. It was unheard of. Brilliant, but unheard of. The exercise progressed to simulated combat. The Council ships spread out in their most effective attack formation, preparing to demonstrate their coordinated strike capabilities. On the Thunder, Captain Walker watched their movement with interest. Traditional pincer formation, Walker noted. They're going to try to box us in. Weapons, load the special exercise rounds. Let's show them something new. The Council fleet launched their attack. Energy beams lanced out with perfect precision, targeting what they believed were the Thunder's weak points. But the human ship didn't try to evade. Instead, it charged straight into the attack. They're mad, Jones shouted as the Thunder plowed through the energy barrage, its strange armor absorbing and redirecting the attacks. Before the Council ships could adjust, the Thunder fired. What happened next would be discussed in Council military academies for years to come. Instead of targeting specific systems like Council doctrine demanded, the Thunder simply filled space with a mix of energy weapons and projectiles. The sheer volume of fire forced the Council ships to break formation. This isn't combat, Jones muttered. This is controlled chaos. But as he watched, he began to see the pattern. The Thunder wasn't just spraying weapons fire randomly. It was hurting the Council ships, forcing them to move in predictable ways. Each time they tried to regroup, another barrage would split them up. Sir, his tactical officer reported, they've isolated the stellar light from the fleet. We can't provide supporting fire without risking hitting our own ship. Jones watched in amazement as the Thunder executed its trap. The isolated Council ship found itself caught between the human vessel's main guns and a field of debris from earlier in the exercise. With nowhere to maneuver, the stellar light was forced to signal its surrender. The exercise continued for several hours, with the Thunder consistently surprising the Council fleet. It took damage, yes, but simply kept fighting. When its energy weapons were disabled in one scenario, it switched to projectiles. When its main engines were hit, it used its maneuvering thrusters in ways the Council ships never imagined possible. Finally, Admiral Jones called an end to the exercise. As the ships regrouped, he received a transmission from Captain Walker. "Excellent exercise, Admiral," Walker said. "Your ships performed beautifully." "Thank you, Captain," Jones replied. "I must admit your tactics were unexpected." Walker smiled. "That's rather the point, isn't it? In real combat, the unexpected is what keeps you alive." "Indeed?" Jones paused. "I noticed you never used your full weapon capabilities, even in the most intense scenarios." "No, sir, we didn't." Walker's smile widened slightly. "Some surprises we keep in reserve, just in case." As the Thunder moved away to begin its journey home, Jones stared at the massive ship thoughtfully. The Council had always believed that advanced warfare meant precision, efficiency, and predictability. The humans had just proved that sometimes the best strategy was to be unpredictable, overwhelming, and just a little bit crazy. It was a lesson the Council would not soon forget. The emergency alert blared through both the Council ships and the HMS Thunder. A massive asteroid cluster, knocked off course by a recent solar storm, was heading straight for the colony world of New Haven. With only 4 hours until impact, there was no time to evacuate the 2 million colonists. The Council's response fleet arrived first, 3 specialized asteroid defense vessels equipped with the latest precision-cutting beams. Captain Walker watched from the Thunder's bridge as they began their standard procedure. "They're trying to slice the asteroids into smaller, manageable pieces," his science officer explained. "It's the approved method for dealing with such threats." Walker nodded, watching the Council ships fire their cutting beams. The precision weapons carved through the first few asteroids perfectly, splitting them into smaller chunks that would burn up in the atmosphere. But there were thousands more coming. "Sir, communications called out. The Council fleet is requesting assistance. They say there are too many asteroids to handle with their current approach." Walker stood up from his command chair. "Time to impact?" 2 hours, 43 minutes. He studied the tactical display, watching the massive field of rocks tumbling toward the planet. The Council ships were still carefully cutting each asteroid they could reach, but it was like trying to empty an ocean with a teaspoon. "Send to Council fleet. Stand clear. We'll handle this." Walker turned to his weapons officer. "Load all tubes with mining charges. Switch main guns to wide dispersion mode." The Council ships watched in confusion as the Thunder moved forward, its massive form pushing through the outer edges of the asteroid field. "What are they doing?" Admiral Lane of the Council fleet demanded. "They can't possibly think they can cut through that many asteroids." "Sir," his sensor officer reported, "they're not powering up cutting beams. They're—" "Oh no." The Thunder's main guns opened up, not with precise cutting beams, but with explosive shells designed to shatter rock. Each blast broke asteroids into clouds of smaller pieces. At the same time, the ship launched waves of mining charges, explosive devices normally used to break up planets for resource extraction. "They're going to make it worse," Lane shouted. "Breaking up the asteroids will only create more debris." But as the Council fleet watched, they began to understand the human strategy. The Thunder wasn't trying to redirect the asteroids or cut them into neat pieces. It was pulverizing them into dust and tiny fragments that would burn up in the atmosphere. "Status of the asteroid field?" Walker asked, as the Thunder's guns thundered continuously. 60% of large bodies destroyed, his tactical officer reported. Remaining fragments are mostly small enough to burn up on entry. Walker nodded. "Launch the second wave of charges. Target the remaining large clusters." The Council ships watched in amazement as the Thunder methodically turned the deadly asteroid field into a cloud of space dust. Occasionally, larger fragments would threaten the ship, but its point defense systems simply blasted them apart. "Time to impact of remaining fragments?" Walker asked. "First fragments entering atmosphere now, sir, but sensors confirm nothing large enough to survive re-entry." On the planet below, the colonists watched as their night sky lit up with thousands of tiny meteors burning up in the atmosphere. a beautiful light show instead of an extinction-level event. Admiral Lane sent a message to the Thunder. Captain Walker, your method was unorthodox, but effective. Though I must point out it violated at least 15 Council safety protocols regarding asteroid management. Can't violate protocols if you never agreed to them in the first place, Walker replied with a slight smile. Sometimes the simplest solution is the best one. Smashing everything to bits is your idea of a simple solution. Worked, didn't it? As the Thunder's crews began reloading their depleted weapons, the Council ship's crews watched with new respect. The humans' approach had been crude, violent, and completely against all standard procedures. It had also saved 2 million lives. Perhaps, Admiral Lane said slowly, there are times when precision isn't the answer. Sometimes you just need to hit the problem hard enough that it stops being a problem. That's humanity in a nutshell, Admiral, Walker replied. When in doubt, hit it harder. And if that doesn't work, well, we haven't found anything yet that won't break if you hit it hard enough. The Council fleet would file lengthy reports about proper procedures and protocols, but they couldn't argue with the results, or the cheers from the grateful colonists below. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with activity. On the main display, images of the HMS Thunder rotated slowly, alongside diagrams of new ship designs that looked noticeably different from traditional Council vessels. First Admiral Starr stood before the assembled representatives, his ceremonial armor glinting under the chamber's lights. The events of the past month have forced us to reconsider many of our basic assumptions about military technology and strategy. The chamber's holographic display shifted to show footage from the asteroid incident. As you can see, the human approach, while seemingly crude, proved remarkably effective. Their willingness to use overwhelming force, combined with their emphasis on redundancy and adaptability, offers valuable lessons. Commander Gray stepped forward, now wearing a new insignia marking him as the head of the Human Technology Integration Committee. We've already begun incorporating human design principles into our newest ships. The results are interesting. The display changed to show a new vessel under construction. It still had the elegant lines of a Council ship, but now featured visible armor plating and significantly more weapon mounts. This is the first of our new Thunderchild class, Gray explained. It combines our precision technology with human defensive principles. Note the multiple redundant systems and the mix of energy and kinetic weapons. From his seat in the observers section, Captain Walker of the Thunder watched with interest. The Council had invited him to witness their presentation of the new designs. We've also begun implementing human training methods, Gray continued. Our crews are learning to operate in variable gravity conditions and to handle multiple roles in emergency situations. The results have exceeded our expectations. The display showed Council crew members in a new training facility, one that looked remarkably similar to the Thunder's recreation deck. Aliens of various species were learning to move and work in changing gravitational conditions. But perhaps most importantly, First Admiral Starr took over. We've learned to question our assumptions about what constitutes advanced technology. The humans taught us that sometimes the simplest solution is the most effective. The Chamber's attention turned to Captain Walker as the First Admiral addressed him directly. Captain, your ship's visit has prompted the biggest change in Council military doctrine in 500 years. The Thunder will be remembered as the vessel that showed us a new way forward. Walker stood, smiling slightly. We're honored to help, Admiral. Though I should mention, the Thunder is one of our older ships. The new ones are, well, let's just say we keep learning too. A murmur ran through the chamber. If this was an old ship, what were the new ones capable of? The First Admiral continued. We've also learned something else from the humans. Their habit of preparing for the worst while hoping for the best has merit. Their focus on survival and adaptability over theoretical perfection deserves our attention. The display showed new training protocols being implemented across the Council fleet. Ships were now required to maintain manual backup systems. Crews were learning to operate their vessels even with significant damage. Combat simulations now included scenarios that would have been considered impossible just a month ago. In conclusion, the First Admiral announced, we are implementing a new doctrine. While we will maintain our commitment to precision and efficiency, we will also embrace redundancy, adaptability, and yes, sometimes overwhelming force when the situation demands it. He turned to face the council. The universe is not always predictable. Not everything can be solved with precision. Sometimes, as the humans say, you need to hit it harder. The chamber filled with approving sounds from various species. Walker noticed several representatives examining the Thunder's schematics with new appreciation. As the session ended, Commander Gray approached Walker. "Captain, my crew has a question. Would the Thunder be willing to participate in some joint training exercises? They want to learn that zero-gravity volleyball game." Walker laughed. "Of course, though I should warn you, we're pretty good at it." "We'll learn," Gray replied with confidence. "After all, that's what this partnership is about, isn't it? Learning from each other." As they left the chamber, Walker glanced back at the display still showing the Thunder's image. The massive battleship had done more than just impress the council. It had bridged two very different approaches to technology and warfare. The future would be interesting indeed.